Talk. This is Singtalk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Singtalk. I would like to thank my lovely wife for joining us again today, co-host.
You're welcome.
And today we have a special co-host as well. Darcy, our producer, is stepping into the co-host role. We're missing Joe today, so I'm kind of doing the Joe voice. Trying. Hey, and Mark Feist is with us, and so is Big Billy Clark.
Yeah.
I'm not good at the Joe thing, so I'm just going to do it in my voice. We have a couple of really great guests today. A couple of friends of mine, Mark Feist and Big Billy Clark. And Mark is a producer, songwriter, multi-platinum songwriter, actually. #1 hit with Destiny's Child, and among a lot of other songs he's written and produced. Billy, a friend of mine who we've done many things over the years together.
Yes.
Of which we can't talk about, but a couple of things we can talk about. Billy started out at Def Jam with Russell Simmons.
Yeah, Def Jam, that was 94. Ooh, telling my age. Don't tell nobody else.
I would never.
Please don't tell nobody
27.
No one listens to this. So, right.
But anyway, let me have you guys. I've got your rundown here, but I would prefer hearing it from you guys. Mark, give us a little.
Sure. So thanks for having us here today, Dave. It's always great to be with you. But yeah, I'm a producer-songwriter originally from Australia. I'm also a multi-instrumentalist. Started playing the drums when I was 2, and then the piano. And growing up in Australia, I was very involved at a very early age. Playing in, the band scene in Australia at school is really big, So I was in concert bands and jazz bands, and that was sort of my training. But I did have formal training as a drummer and a pianist. And then as time went on, I always wanted to be a producer, ventured into composition, and, a very long time ago, moved to the United States to chase my dream, and pretty much didn't really know anyone when I got here. And, had to really fight the fight. But some 20 years later, I've been lucky enough to work with Beyoncé and Mary J. Blige, Celine Dion, John Legend, and many other great
And now
artists.
us.
And
So
of
you can
course.
add that to your
And of
bio.
course.
Yeah.
The pinnacle of your
Which is
career.
exciting
The
for you.
Singtalk crew.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. So then after, years and years of producing and writing for many different people, about a year ago, I started a label called Hitmakers Entertainment. And we were blessed and lucky enough to bring Billy on board to run A&R for the company.
Yes.
Which has been really, really awesome. And it also actually connected, me with you, which has been fantastic.
Which did not suck for me.
not for us either, because boy, have you done wonders for all the artists that we've signed.
Yeah,
So,
you guys, but you guys have picked up some freaking great talent. I don't even have to say freaking. You guys have picked up some fucking great talent.
Yes. No, we've been very lucky, but we've seen, we've seen some amazing, transformations, especially with Terrence Wilde, who, used to come to the studio and it would take 2-3 days to cut one record. And the other day he showed up and cut a record in an hour and a half, and his falsetto, and it was just amazing. So it's a huge testament to what you do, Dave. We really
I hope
appreciate
he's
that.
staying on it like twice a day like he's supposed to, but
You know.
You know how it is with artists. Herding cats. Herding cats.
Yeah. So.
All right, Billy, tell us a little bit about you.
Billy actually started out herding cats.
Yeah.
Which is a great story, but
Yeah,
tell it your way.
Only the hairless cats, because they're
easier to
scare
catch.
the shit out of me. I have a buddy that actually has a hairless dog. Side note,
Wow.
and it's really scary.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
walks up
they
and
are
he's like,
scary.
pet him. I'm like, no, I don't want to touch him.
I can see him from here.
It's great. It's
He's
creepy
adorable.
as
They look so
fuck.
naked,
oh,
too.
Oh my god, it's nasty. And the cats are worse. Anyways, no, like Mark, I've been in this business for over 20 years now, and started at Def Jam when I was 19. And I was just a hungry kid that just wanted to learn and wanted to grow and wanted to be involved in the business and artist and kind of see what it was all about. And so started at Def Jam interning, wasn't getting paid, working like a dog, and ended up being there 9 years.
Because not getting paid is so enticing. You just want to stay around.
I mean, what's funny is that I loved it so much. I loved learning so much. 'Cause
that does speak volumes on your love of it, though.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're not getting,
I look back now and I'm like, how the fuck did I do that for so long? I mean, it was a couple years before I started getting paid, but I'm like, how did I fucking do that? When I was working a graveyard job. There used to be an electronics store called The Good Guys right across from the Beverly Center. I used to work there graveyard shift, and I would be at Def Jam.
Who's buying electronics at like 3 a.m?
You would be surprised at the amount of celebrities that come in
I
there
need
to
my
get
Blu-ray.
away. No, I have a funny story about Jack Black, which is pretty hilarious, but I'll tell it.
Yeah,
just tell it. I'm like,
come on, do that.
Why wait? You can't not say.
So this is like before Jack Black was really Jack Black, and this is probably 19, 20 years ago. Anyways, so it's like 2 a.m. Jack Black comes in. Obviously, I don't know who he is.
The Good Guys.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm telling you, that's where everyone would shop when they don't want to be bothered. No one,
So
Well, we have
funny.
to also remember that in those days we didn't have Amazon. We didn't have
yeah.
like when
That's
you
true.
yeah, you know
When you
Yeah,
got
yeah,
the
yeah,
urge to
absolutely.
buy something, you had to
you had to physically go get it.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So he comes
VCR.
So Jack comes in and he I'm like, hey, can I help you? And so he's, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that, whatever. I don't remember what he bought, but it might have been like a DVD player or something random like that. But anyways, so he comes in there, and when you work at this electronics store and you buy something, I have to get the information to put in the computer in case they want to return it. It's on the receipt, it has their name and their address and all that stuff. And so he buys the thing, I ring it up, and I go, I need your name. Do I have to give you that? I'm like, yeah, well, it's easier if you want to return it in the future. It's just, it's in the system. I don't really want to give you all that. I'm like, it's really better for you if in case you have any problems, you're in the system. Okay, fine. I'm like, well, what's your last name? It's Black. It's Black. I'm like, okay, Black. And then I go, well, what's your first name? And he goes, do I have to give you that too? I was like, yeah, I need both. Fine. It's Jack. And I was like, Jack Black? You couldn't come up with anything more original than Jack Black? And he gives me his credit card and it says Jack Black. And I was like, oh, fuck my life right now. So
Thank you, Mr. Black.
that's my funny Jack Black story. I
That's
was like,
hysterical.
sorry. Mr.
And then he went home and went, oh, that was Jack Black.
I know, but at the time, this was 20 years ago. I didn't know.
He's like,
It's before
cable.
School of Rock.
This is before Nacho Libre, which is my favorite movie of all time. Anyways,
So Jack, if you're listening, Billy does like you. He was
Yeah.
just.
I love Jack Black. But yeah, so that's what I was doing when I was interning at Def Jam all day. I'd work graveyard and then leave there at 10 in the morning or 9 in the morning and go to my internship where I'd get
Wow.
yelled and screamed
Wow.
at while I got coffee and faxed and answered phones and booked flights for LL Cool J.
And
I would have.
Anyways,
done
so did that. Eventually, worked my way up, and eventually was running the LA office, the office manager and A&R, and then, Leo Cohen moved me to New York. That was my last year, the 9 years that I was there.
You moved up to Radio Shack.
Oh yeah, I moved up to Radio Shack, and
Which was exciting.
and I worked like regular hours.
That's so great,
I
yeah.
got a little bit of sleep. So yeah, I mean it's been a good time.
Awesome.
Left there, tour managed for a few years.
Hoobastank.
Hoobastank, Christina Milian. We did some really cool tours. We did Kanye, we did Usher, we did Linkin Park. We did
Who's the young guy you
fun
went out
stuff.
with that was opening for Cody? Cody Simpson?
Mackenzie Board.
Yeah.
Mackenzie
No,
Board.
not Mackenzie. No, not Mackenzie. The guy that was on the TV show with Ariana Grande.
Leon. No, he didn't.
Leon.
No, it wasn't Cody Simpson. It was Big Time Rush. He opened up for Cody was on the tour, but
Cody
it was
was
a big
on the
it was a
tour.
Big Time
Okay,
Rush
okay. Oh, it was a Big Time Rush
tour.
tour.
Shout out
Okay,
Big Time
yeah.
Rush. Shout out Cody Simpson too.
Woo.
Good guy. Did that, and then in 2005 went to Atlantic Records. Kirk Cameron brought me to Atlantic Records. Did that for a couple years. Then went to Epic, Sony Music, and then I just had to get out of the label system for a little bit. Things were changing, and that's a whole other podcast.
So how did you guys meet? Well, we're going to go into it, but how did you guys meet?
Well, it's kind of interesting because Billy and I have, done so many great things, as individuals. But we knew of each other, but we'd actually never
worked
met
together. Yeah.
So when I formed this company, another employee that's no longer with us actually said you should meet Billy, and we took one meeting. And it was kind of weird. Like, we just really connected in like 20. It was just the weirdest thing ever. We just had very similar passions and just vision and just approach. And it just kind of.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
For me, it was awesome. It was like, you know that Whitney Houston song, "I Want to Run to You"? I left his house and I was like, he's amazing. He gets me. Because we've been in the industry for a long time, so it's a lot of the same people that we've dealt with.
So you guys have only known each other really for about a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's funny, we work together like
Same
we've been
circles.
Totally.
Even you guys just now, and it just seems like you've.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Long
funny.
lost brothers.
We'll get a video, we'll get something back, a mix or a music video back, and like without showing each other the notes, we'll come back to each other and they're pretty much
Same
exactly
notes.
the
That's
same
great.
comments.
Yeah,
You know?
that's so
So
cool.
it's just really, really
Very
good.
similar, yeah. It's pretty cool. And it's so rare when that happens too. So that's why it's like, for me, it was so exciting to be involved in this,
Yeah, it's awesome. Let's go back for a second. I want to go back and retrace our steps here a little bit. Your first big hit was the
Beyonce.
Actually, my
Destiny's
first big hit was I moved here from Australia in '94, and I hustled and grinded for 4
Worked
years,
it.
and then
Good guys.
finally. Yeah. Well,
That's
no,
funny. You guys
Dick
didn't
Smith.
know each other. Cause
No.
Just
I was
different
at,
shifts.
I was at Dick Smith's. Yeah. No. But what was interesting is in between leaving Sydney because I'm Australian. I left there, and I actually started my career in the Philippines.
Oh, really?
Yes, I lived there for about 6 years. My father was an executive with an American pharmaceutical company, and he got moved there. So I started my career as a producer songwriter there for 6 years. I was actually the musical director on the equivalent of the Jimmy Fallon show every night.
Wow.
And,
At 13.
at 18. Yeah. And but one of the things that really, I think, really honed in my skills was when I lived in the Philippines, this Japanese guy sort of showed up at my doorstep because he had heard this record I'd produced for a local Filipino talent. And this was in the late 80s. And karaoke was really big back then. They had laser discs and stuff like that. And the Japanese were the biggest producers of this stuff. So this guy showed up on my doorstep and he said, I want to hire you to do some work. And I said, well, what kind of work is it? And he said, well, I got 10 songs that are currently, the top 10 records on Billboard. This is 1988. And he says, there's just no Pro Tools, it's all tape. It's it's very, and he says, I got 10 songs. I'm going to give you $5,000 today, and I'm going to give you another $5,000 on Sunday, but only if you finish the 10 songs. And finishing the 10 songs entailed recreating everything from scratch. And
So you got paid $1,000 a song.
Yes. And
That's pretty good pay.
and and I had to finish and recreate it and find a singer locally that actually sounded like the original singer. And then we would, there was a special way they wanted me to mix the records where, the vocal track was mixed on a separate track to the rest so that they could separate it out when they did it. And so the next job he gave me, which was 2 weeks later, turned into $15,000 and then $20,000. And so I really
Who was this guy?
his name was Kazu Watanabe. And
Don't know him.
but
Huh.
that's
weird.
That
I feel like I know him though.
So when I living in the Philippines, I did a lot of that for him, and it really honed my producing
forced your skills. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right
when I moved to the U.S., I graduated from doing that with him. He also, after a while, he graduated me to actually producing Japanese artists that were signed. And the way that would go down is because the Japanese market is 80%, domestic. They would fly the artist to L.A. He would fly me to L.A. I would produce the artist with a translator because they would sing it all in Japanese, and then I would finish the records in Los Angeles and then go back to the Philippines where I lived. So when I finally at about the age of 25, 94, I decided, well, I'm going to move to L.A. and I came here, and it's just like nobody really gave a shit. By the time I got here, I'd produced and written jingles for McDonald's and Pepsi, and I was on 40 albums all over Asia, artists from Malaysia and Singapore, and I was 24 years old, and I was a musical director on a.
Were you making money?
No, well, from the Asian stuff, I was able to put away quite a bit of money because I realized that, like, moving here, I better have something put away because it's going to take a minute to actually break through. Mm-hmm. So I got here, started taking meetings. Nobody gave a shit about all my accomplishments outside of the U.S. They were just like, "Great, what have you done here?"
Yeah.
Where's Japan?
Yeah, who cares? What's the name of this artist?
Sounds
I can't even.
The capital of China.
Yeah.
can't even pronounce her name. And so 4 years after arriving here, I had my first real hit, which was with Keith Washington and Shantae Moore. It was a song that I wrote and produced, and that was a funny story. At the time, there was a guy by the name of Lil Silas Jr. who was the president of MCA Records, and I called this guy every single day for a meeting. Okay, every day, and the assistant would just say, sorry, and I just kept persisting and persisting and persisting. Anyway, fast forward about 3 months after, literally, the restraining order. I was working with an artist named Shanice.
Oh, yeah.
Who was,
I love your
back
smile.
then. Yeah, I love your smile. And she had just gotten out of a deal at Motown. We connected, and we started writing really great songs together.
Was this post Nardo, Michael Walden?
This is post Nardo.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and so she and I start writing all these great songs together, and at the time, she's dating one of the jocks from The Beat, a guy by the name of Theo. And this guy, Theo, used to get on the air every afternoon and just prank call stars. And one day he prank called his girlfriend, Shanice, and while he was prank calling her on the air, I called her to ask her a question, and she says, I got to take this call. This is my producer, Mark Feist. The next day, Lil Silas's office calls me and says he wants to meet you now.
Wow.
So I go in there.
What does that teach us? Whatever's on the radio.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the next day, I set up the meeting and I go in there and I have this song that I wrote with Shanice that she demoed. And I walk into this meeting to meet him, and Lil at the time was king of the world. I mean, he in that era of the music business. I mean, he found New Edition and Bobby Brown, and he was just really, really big. I mean, anything that was working at MCA was because of him. And I went in to meet him, and I walked into his office, and he kind of looked at me like, "Who are you? Like what's going on here? Like why are you getting a
Why
shout
did my
out?"
assistant...
Why did my assistant... So he says to me, you got any music? And back then, we had DATs, which were like digital DAT tapes. And I brought my DAT, and he literally had like a studio set up in his office. It was insane.
Wow.
And I pulled out this record that I wrote with Shanice that she demoed, and I played it, and he looked at me, and he goes, "You did this shit?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, wait, what did you do? And I said, "Well, I'm playing all the instruments on it. I did the vocal arrangements, and I co-wrote the song with Shanice." He's like, "Can you make this song into a duet?" I said, "Yeah, I can." And he goes, "Can you show me?" And I was like, "Yeah, play it from the top." So I started arranging a duet on the spot in front of him in his office. He stops the song 2 minutes in, and he calls his assistant Sharon, and he says, "Sharon, call Keith Washington and Shantae Moore and get them down to the office here right now." And he brought them down. They were there within like the hour. And he played them the record and told them, "You're cutting this record." And we cut the deal to do the record that day. I got paid $20,000 to do it. Right? And
But you owned your publishing, so you made some back end on it?
I didn't own I had a co-pub deal, but, I did get my share of it all. And, after I recorded the song, he called me after the song was done, and he said, "That's going to be the single."
Wow.
And, and there were a lot of other people on the record. But that was my first hit. So it was like I think it was the 30th most played song, on urban radio when it came out in 98. So, people still come up to me now a long time later and go, "I made babies to that record," and oh my God.
That nice 90s R&B groove.
Yeah, 1998. So
that's where
that was my first hit.
That's why they have those teenagers in the late 2000s because of you.
Yes, that's it. You can blame me for that. Yeah. So that was my first hit, and then, obviously after you have one, for everyone out there listening, it sort of does get a little bit easier because people think that You can go to Berkeley and you can go to here and you can go there and get a degree. And all that helps. But I think that really, people really look at your credits. I think that's the most valuable. Sure. That's one of the most valuable things.
So first of all, become famous. All right, that's step one.
Yeah.
Make a hit album. Step two.
Easy.
Yeah. Once you're in there, I'll give you some more tips.
Well, I can relate in a way because I finished a jazz degree, and even if I were to pursue jazz, when I walked out that door after graduating with honors, first class honors and everything, it was like
not prepared to work.
Well, yeah. I mean, like nobody cares. No, like it's a piece of paper. That's it.
Yeah.
And I always tell people like I'm no better. And you're probably not going to be really any better skill set wise when you finally do get a break, whatever it takes, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years to get there. I mean, you might be better in terms of like your experience and your ability to handle situations, but a lot of the time, the skill set is pretty much the same. You know what I mean? But it is kind of the unfair side of the business, but it's just the way it works. So I think that. It's the chicken with the egg, chicken before the egg. And everyone that's trying to start out and do this is like, but how do I get a credit? Well, you just got to grind and persist at everything you can without, people taking out restraining orders. Like
and learn that you don't need to piss people off.
Right.
Know your value, but know it to a point that you don't offend people.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's
really important.
Young, talented kids coming up, I'm fucking great. And you're like, yep. And you're going to go in your bedroom and you're going to be fucking great, but that's where you're going to end up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so do you have a life-changing song? One song that changed the waterfall that changed everything?
Emotion by Destiny's Child.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Windfall.
Really, 20 million singles sold.
Wow.
I mean, 1 million copies in 5 days.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah,
that industry is gone.
Yeah, does that still happen? No?
Well,
in a different way.
In streams and stuff it does.
Yeah.
But that was that was an exciting time for the record business. I mean, Tommy Mottola was running Sony and that's a really funny story because I had actually cut that song with another artist in Asia and Matthew Knowles heard it, and just called me up out of the blue and was like, "We love this. Can the girls come out and meet you?" And at that time, they were big. I mean, they had Say My Name, and they were big. So they flew out, and I met them at Enterprise. And I remember sitting with the girls, and Beyonce sort of saying, "I really love that record you did with Keith Washington and Chante Moore." And that was 3-4 years ago. So all of that again helps. I think if I didn't have that record, they would have kind of looked at, and they really didn't have to have me produce it at that point because they were bigger than life.
Yeah, they could have had anybody.
Yeah, and so. That really changed my life. That was it's a game changer.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. 15 years later, not to brag, but not many people can say, Google my name. It's next to Beyonce's.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like saying, it's so that really changed my life. And just from a musical point of view, I just think that's the kind of record that my vision for that record was. I wanted to introduce Destiny's Child to a whole nother audience. And because they were so big on the rhythmic side, and I wanted to produce a record that, hot AC audience, people in their, 30s to 70 would hear and be like, "Oh my God, these girls are amazing." And we did exactly that. So that would be the record.
Right on.
That was my jam.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark, did you write and produce or?
No, I didn't write that song. That song was written by the Bee Gees.
Yeah, the Emotions.
No.
Oh,
Emotion.
yeah, right,
Yeah, Emotion was written by the Bee Gees. I mean, I went on and did produced several things for Kelly Rowland on her solo, which I wrote. But that was the story behind that is that BMG Music Publishing, who had my publishing, had just bought the Bee Gees catalog for, gazillions of dollars.
Yep.
And Danny Strick at the time, who was the president of BMG, sort of came to all the writers and said, "We'd love to be able to sort of do something with this catalog." So I produced a demo of that. I love that. I always loved that song. So I took the song and completely flipped it. People come to me all the time and they think it's an original. And I'm like, no, because when you hear the original, it's nothing like the version that I did for Destiny's Child because it's so different, So I produced the demo, and like I said, the demo got to Matthew, and Matthew just was like, he flipped out over it. So that's how it happened.
Well, if you're going to have a producer producing an old Bee Gees song, they better be Australian.
There you go.
So,
Bee Gees.
so question about this marriage here. Where do you two think the light at the end of the tunnel is these days, business-wise? Everyone is going, artists get into this business, and, from my perspective, I see a lot of artists at the ground level, and they go, I want a record deal, or when I go, I don't know how to advise you anymore, because I don't know where's the light at the end of the tunnel as far as the disruption that's happened in the business. What's your opinion on all this?
I think the end goal, the light is still the same. The light at the end of the tunnel is still the same. It's just a matter of the path to get there is much different.
That's what I mean, I guess.
Yeah. It's much different. I think that we were even talking earlier about radio and how important radio was. And I don't know if radio's as important. It is. It's
still super expensive.
It's very expensive. But I think that with streaming, it's like there's so many kids that are finding and discovering new artists via playlists and all of these streaming services. So it's a different time now.
I know. So my curiosity is, okay, the light at the end of the tunnel for me is not success. The light at the end of the tunnel is, what's the new model?
Well, no, it's still success.
No. But I'm not saying success. I'm saying, what's the model? So when somebody comes to me and they want, what's your advice? I go, I don't know what to tell you anymore.
It depends on what they want to do. It depends on where they want to go. Some artists are they just want to create and be themselves and be weird and left field and vibey and cool, and there's an audience for that. It's just a matter of finding those fans. And there's other people that are in it just to be famous. Me and Mark know a couple of those. So it's just
the difference between the artist and the
and the persona of what they're trying to. Yeah.
But some of them I work with, they come through the door and they've already got 4 million followers, and they get 200 to 300,000 likes on these things they post. But the money is translating because brands pay them?
Yeah.
But where's the money in music?
Okay, so can I jump in on that one?
Of course.
So first of all, I think everything that Billy said, I concur. But I think that we've taken a lot of meetings together with this company as a baby company, and I think that my philosophy and through all of this and just being around the business for as long as I have is that it's actually a very, very exciting time. Okay, because of streaming, there is such a massive, unlimited platform for you to put out content. But here's the problem. Between Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube, which are the 3 biggest platforms, you basically have an unlimited ocean of content.
There's
a lot of noise.
There's a billion points of entry, and there's no value.
Right. So here's the thing, right? L.A. Reid once told me many, many years ago, the cream always rises to the top. And I added to that by saying, yes, and in some mugs, it just takes longer than others, right? I think that really applies now. I think if you focus on amazing content and you put it out and you have those kind of followers, it will find a way. We have an artist that we signed from Australia named Tosh, who literally, when we signed her, had 1,000 followers on Instagram. Today, she's approaching 60,000. She gets 250,000 engagements, impressions a week on Instagram. We've put 2 records out, and with virtually very, very little promotion, we are approaching 750,000 streams. And there's other artists that we know that have been out for a year that have 1 million followers that have 10,000 streams on a record.
And might I add that Natasha's content is incredible.
Well, that's the point.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah, you guys know how to find talent, and that's part of that.
You know what? I don't know if, yes, we do know how to find talent, but I think what we do just as good is we know how to develop and hone in those superpowers of those talent. Because I think that, look, the label systems are just like any corporation, there's a dysfunctionality to something that big. But I think with the labels, a lot of the time, they use more of a fishnet approach where they, sign 40 things, bring it in, and they don't spend it's just too big a machine for them to really focus on each one. Yeah. Whereas with us, we've really taken a sniper approach with every artist and said, when Billy and I sat down for the first time, what was really important to me in hiring someone, to run A&R for the company was that they understood that, the consumer wants to buy into a complete brand. Yeah. They want to buy into a sound. Adele sells albums because she has a very distinct direction and sound. And I think that for us, with all of these artists, Terrence, who you work with, that was really important to us to figure out something that would separate them and make them unique. Tosh is 90s hip hop, but she's, with jazzy chord influences, but she's a 15-year-old girl, and those chords are really who she is. So when you throw a really dope beat on it and she sings the way she is, everyone comes back and goes, there's comments on iTunes that say, man, this girl's so amazing, but how did she, what's up with this sound, And I think that for every artist, you have to find your niche. I think, we look at the Katy Perrys and some of these other artists that, go through their, peaks and valleys, and, I don't want to, single any of them out, but I'm just saying you'll find that when they have success, it's because the songs stand out. When you start making generic records that, or generic music that is just like everyone else's, it doesn't work. It doesn't matter how many fans you have. The kids don't care who produced it, who wrote it. The music consumer just wants great content.
Yeah, the shit's bad. The shit's bad.
So going back
or
to what,
not bad even if it just blends in.
Right. It has to stand
There's
out.
so many Me Too's. Who do you like? Well, I love, whomever. I want to be just like them. And I keep saying, but they own that space. Yeah. You can't.
Well, it's the comparison of, I always tell the artists, it's like, you want to get into the soda business and you want to come out with a Coke.
Yep.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah. Because Coke owns that space.
Coke and Pepsi have been fighting over that space for the past 100 years. Yeah. So it's the same here. It's like you have to come up with something. If you're going to come up with a drink, you come up with a kombucha that no one's come up with.
Yeah.
And you slowly break through. But so, going back to your question, right. Going back to your question about, what do you give, what advice do you give these kids? I think it's that. It's focus on great content and know what your strengths are. Not every artist is as good as a writer as they are, a singer. Like I know there's so many artists out there that are in denial about their strengths. Right. Writing is a gift. Singing is a gift. Not everyone has both. And, learn how to collaborate and learn what your strengths and weaknesses are, because
there's a third part to this too. You've got writing, you've got singing, and you've got image. And we are such an image-driven. So if you don't have the right image, but you can sound great and you can sing great,
you won't sell records.
Yeah. Right. I mean, Christopher Cross died because MTV launched.
Right.
Great singer, great song, but a little awkward, visually.
Yep. No, it's branding is, we tell that to...
Visually.
We have that conversation all the time with all the artists. It's like, the music consumer now wants to buy into a lifestyle.
The whole thing.
They want to buy into a lifestyle of an artist. So, that's all encompassing. The sound, the look, the way you dress, who you hang out with, who you party with, what you do every day.
Who you're married to.
Right.
You killed my career.
Oh, wow. Sorry.
So, anyway.
Just because they can see through all the bullshit. They could tell when something's forced or not genuine,
Okay, so that sort of brings me into this next question I have for both of you. What do you think the number one error in A&R is? What do you think the most common mistake people make, either the artist is making or the label's making it in the A&R process?
Well, you can start, because boy, I can go on forever about that.
I mean, it boils down to direction. At the end of the day, when you have an artist that you sign, like Mark just said, there has to be a clear, defined direction. If there's not, it'll keep flip flopping. It'll keep changing. The sound will change. It's you have to start somewhere and grow from there. Otherwise, there's no, like I said, people don't.
So dig into. I mean, instead of a 30,000 foot response to that, give me the specific. Yeah, I mean, give us names and give us specifics of what you've dealt with, like anecdotally, but from your perspective.
You're trying to get me jumped, aren't you? When I leave here,
Mr. A and Mr. X.
Come on, Dave.
All right, call him Mr. X, but
and I always tell Mark, me and Mark talk about this all the time, but everybody has a different idea about music. I mean, me as an A&R person over the years, if I signed the same artist that got signed by another A&R, we would make two completely different albums. Every A&R has their own kind of idea of what they like and what they what they gravitate to, and direction-wise where they would go and take a specific artist. I've seen in so many instances where us as a label would sign an artist and make just an album that's either mediocre because the artist is just way too big and they have too much say into where they want to go, and it's artists are not always right. It goes both ways. It's the label and the artist, but
wouldn't you rather have an artist show up who has an opinion of who they are?
Yeah, but how many times have you sat with artists that say this song is? I've sat in meetings with you first of all with artists that go, "This is the most amazing thing I've ever done. Dave, listen to this," and then we're both sitting there like, "What the fuck are you playing me right now?" And I'm not saying any names, but yes,
I don't know what you're talking about.
So there has to be a trust there, with artists.
But at the same time, you want them to have a little idea of who they are.
Absolutely.
As a songwriter, as a voice,
Absolutely.
like what's your message? It can't be, well, this is my message because Billy, my A&R guy, wants me to have it. They need to have.
No, of course, and that's why labels don't sign things and do artist development anymore. It's up to people like Mark and I to do it on our end. You know what I'm saying? Because labels are waiting for the artist to be already have that figured out and already making noise.
Yeah, it's a whole other,
it's a whole different ballgame.
They're just
an
distribution
outsider
companies.
question.
Outsider question
Outsider
number
question.
one.
Hey.
Ding 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 ding.
Where are we? No. What does A&R encompass? Like what?
That's a great question.
It stands for artist and repertoire, but it's. I mean,
what does that mean? Like
it's changed over the years. A&R people at labels were the ones that would sign artists, basically scout and sign artists and make records. So the A&R was responsible for, helping figure out the direction, producers, songwriters to make an album.
So sort of
complete.
Project managing the album.
Overseeing
and then
everything.
Yeah,
the nervous system,
image, everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then from there it goes to marketing. It goes from there to marketing. So it's the A&R's vision of that artist to deliver to the label.
Right. So like, what would be an example of a decision you made on an artist where you went like, this is a direction we're going to go, like, fashion-wise?
So if I sign Darcy, we'd have to sit down and figure out which producers make the most sense for the sound that we're going for Darcy. Is it going to be a pop record? Is it going to be a jazz record? Is it going to be a blues record? Is it going to be a funk?
Rap?
Is it? Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that need to be figured out before we get to making music. I mean, because he might go, I really love this sound. I want to do a song like this, and then we go in the studio and we cut 20 songs, and they all sound different. There's no. You know what I'm saying?
Continuity.
They're all over
Who
the place.
is he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that happens a lot.
Yeah, I must say, as a listener, I get disappointed when I hear an artist, I hear this song, I go, wow, this song's incredible. Like, I want to hear more of this.
And then you hear the album.
And then I'm like, this is nothing, this isn't what I wanted. You know what I mean? It
happens all the time.
Yeah.
And is it both in the messaging and the sound? Do you think? I mean,
Yeah, it's everything.
I mean, they're singing about X, and then all of a sudden they're singing about A, B, and C, and it's very off topic.
Yeah,
Let's
and
talk about X.
it's also sonically.
Baby.
Sonic is important.
Yeah.
The kids care about the beat. They do. I mean, they care about the beat just as much as they care about the message and the lyrics.
Right.
So consistency in all those areas are important, I think, just sort of going back to your question, Dave, I think that the biggest mistake I think that's made in developing an artist is I think that sometimes, on the label side of things where, a senior A&R executive is getting paid so much money, I think that it becomes political. I think that they start to think about, they're scared to make a mistake. They're scared to lose that amazing job. And, I'm not going to mention any artist names, but I see this all the time where an artist will put out a record and it'll be written by, the flavor of the month. Max Martin, Dr. Luke, who I think are both absolutely incredible and geniuses. But, sometimes just because it worked for Ariana doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for Tori Kelly. I think that, and there it is. Like, you have to find, I think where the biggest mistake in A&R is made is they don't sit down and figure out what you said. Find the balance of who the artist is and combine that with something that makes sense musically, sonically, lyrically, image-wise, that is different from everything else out there, but still is a fair representation of who that artist is as an individual.
Yeah, and that's the magic. I mean, that's the art of A&R. It's not a science, and it's taking all these pieces and going, okay, that has this vibe, and this over here has that vibe, and how are we going to make that work with this look? And
yeah, I mean, we'll use Terrence Wilde as an example. He's an artist that's signed to us that we've been developing now. We've got a record out called Flashlight. But when we signed him, thank you. When we signed him,
the video is awesome, by the way. Too.
Yeah,
you guys did a great job.
When we signed Terrence, he was really hung up on being John Mayer's, stepchild. And
John's like, I have a restraining order. This guy won't quit calling me.
And after spending a lot of time with him, we figured out that he danced as a young kid, and he listened to a lot of Justin Timberlake, and he loved Bruno Mars, and we helped him sort of get to a point where he said, man, I want to be me, I want to be Terrence Wilde, but I want to find that, I want to find that middle ground of Bruno and Justin and In Sync, but with my flavor in 2017, and we did that.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah, and so with him, it's another case of with all the One Direction boys putting out records now, even in that space, if you listen to the music that we've created, and I know you've heard all the songs, it still stands out in a world where there's a lot of content, and that's.
But it's also flattering you guys here because you're here, so I should kiss your ass a little bit. It's really well written and produced.
Tell us more.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
What else?
I mean, the video and all that sort of stuff is done well. You guys did a great job. But the core of the song, man, that stuff is produced well.
It's all those karaoke's 25 years ago, man.
That's where it all started.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Kuzo? Kuzo?
Kazoo. Yeah, like kazoo, yeah.
Watanabe. Kazoo. Watanabe.
Yeah, you remembered that.
Yeah, that was good.
That's good. I'd have been like,
Well, listen, Big Jimmy Clark, I don't forget names.
Oh, Dave.
So, all right. Another question for both of you.
Yeah.
Confer amongst each other.
When are you going to ask us a question? I'm just feeling a little like Darcy
Dave,
and I
come on.
Really
How do you guys feel about me?
All right, ask them a
Anyway,
question.
back to the question. Okay. Is there an artist out there right now that you guys wish you would have signed? Is there anybody out there that you go, damn, that would have been great to have on our label doing what we do?
Interesting question.
That's a good question.
Or who is somebody out there, and I don't want to hijack Dave's question, but who's somebody out there who you look at and you go, wow, who's just totally wowing you at the moment, if you can't answer that question?
It's sort of both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, no, I'm just kidding.
Who's wowing me right now? I don't,
Who is wowing you?
Besides
Who
us.
has?
Maybe not even their whole career, but is there a song out right now that you go, all right, they did that right?
We can edit this out.
No.
Yeah.
No, I like this.
No, I can't. I don't know.
I'm definitely a student of the business, and I popular music has a whole nother meaning nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Drake is the biggest artist in the world in terms of numbers and streaming, and has been consistently. And I got to tell you, I think he's amazing. I think that. I think this last album to me was a little, a little safe, but you can't front on, just what an amazing, package that they put together for him. He's just, I mean, the records are amazing. His melodies are great. His message is great, and he's kept his image, and it really, really works. So for me, I'd say I really love Drake, and I'm not selling out because he is so big. I've just always been a fan. I just think there's something about him.
And do you think they're being super cautious about his image and who he's with, or is it just him being him?
I think he is so big because it's him being him.
It feels like, as a listener, it feels like
and that's exactly why he's successful. Is because everyone, all the girls want to be with him, and all the guys want to hang out and party with him.
That's the magic formula. If you can do that, yeah.
I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but I always tell students as well. Eventually, your audience, your fans, either want to be you or do you, and you just got to keep figuring out.
It's the same as for A&R people too. It's the same for A&R people too. I mean, people are like, "Can we meet?" And I'm like, "You either want to be me or do me."
Oh my God.
Which one is it? Tell me the truth.
Be or do.
You want to do me, don't you? I knew it. Okay, let's meet.
So on the
I just want to know
shifting...
what size coffee you want, sir. All right, whatever. Be or do.
Now move along down the end of the line.
Move along,
But anyway, on the other side, has there been somebody you've tracked and watched, and then they've been picked up, and you went, oh man, that was a,
He's not letting this question go.
I'm not, because I'm curious. There's another part to this question, which is how, if you're just some kid in Ohio in the middle of nowhere, and they want, you guys to discover them, how is this happening? So you guys are looking for talent, you find talent, and you see somebody who's growing, and next thing you know, Epic picked him up. And you go, man, we should have moved in sooner. Has that ever happened?
Not yet, but it probably will.
I mean, I think, it's happened for me for sure. Like, not necessarily here at Hitmakers, but I mean, over the course of my career, there's definitely been artists that I've loved and chased after that, eventually got deals at other places or,
and how did it go from? I mean, what did it look like?
I mean, T.I. was one of them. I wanted to sign T.I. when I was at Def Jam and brought everybody into New York. And, I mean, Tori Kelly and JoJo and there's a bunch of great artists that I've
pursued and
then people would tell me like they're not stars, and then I go, oh, okay, because they're
Where
my
do you look? Where do you look for talent?
Everywhere, anywhere, and everywhere.
Yeah, but do you have do you actively go on your to-do list like, all right, I'm going to go listen to hours of content somewhere?
But I do that anyways. I mean, if I'm at home, I usually will throw on YouTube and let it kind of play or
really,
I do that.
Instagram.
I discover artists a lot from there, and a lot of times because people know. I think fortunately because we've been doing this for so long, people know that this is what we do. So they're sending you. They forward us stuff all the time. People will go, "Hey," I mean, if someone sees a video like on Instagram, if it's really good, they'll tag me in it, and I'll see it and I'll go, "Oh wow,
yeah."
And thank you for that.
We get a lot of that now.
As an emerging artist, I have a few questions, but running off that one, what are the things that kick off that instinct? Going, okay, this is something like anything apart from just
amazing content.
Feeling.
We signed. We've just signed a 16-year-old kid who's sort of a Drake meets Bieber. He also writes and produced, and he had one song, no social media.
None.
And we heard one song that he put out on SoundCloud. And in one day got 10,000 views. We signed him the next day.
Wow.
Because the content was so good.
Yeah.
Pulled the song down.
Pulled the song
immediately.
down.
Here's your deal, buddy.
Yeah, and did it.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what I'm hearing is very, very different than what I've heard lately.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from you guys is content that drives social numbers, not social numbers driving a deal.
I think it's both.
But I mean, some people are only, what are your numbers?
Yes, because I think that those type of people don't want to have the pressure of identifying what great content is. They figure if the numbers are there, we'll find the great content. And they might find the great content, but it might not be as authentic like we talked about Drake. And that's where, for us, it's really important that everything we develop turn into catalog artists.
One certainly feels a lot more wholesome than the other from my perspective.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah. So
it's the same thing like when I was at Def Jam when we started doing all the kid labels started doing A&R research, and it was like you would scour radio to see kind of what artists are getting spins on radio stations that weren't signed. And I mean, you might find an artist that's in Milwaukee or in different cities that were getting spins, but are they career artists? that was always the big thing, you know. And if they have a song that's buzzing and growing, the label would do a deal with them, and it might be a short term deal with, you know, that'll make money. But at the end of the day, it's like you're not signing career artists. And I think for me and Mark, it's that we were really big on.
Yeah,
we're laser focused on. Yeah,
it's a lot to put into somebody for one song.
Yeah, because it's a commitment from our end. You know, not just you know, money wise, or it's like it's emotion. It's you know, like we get emotionally invested into all our artists that we deal with. So it's who wants to, you know.
Yeah, I think yes, 90% of the time, you know, that's sort of the norm. But like you look at Marion Hill, you know, the "Are You Down da da down da da," you know that song. It was a number one record. They're a duo, a guy and a girl, and Republic signed them. They have 60,000 fans on Instagram, but they're coming off a number one record worldwide.
Wow!
And the reason why Republic signed them is because Apple put the song in a commercial, and it just, you know, the sales and the streams went through the roof. So, of course, without that commercial and without the streams, I don't think a label would have signed them. But sometimes I don't necessarily, you know, Meghan Trainor, when you know, as the All About That Bass record came out, was under 100,000 followers as well. And it doesn't always mean that when you have a hit record, it bleeds over into massive followers. I think that it helps, but it's a combination of. I just really think it's all about the content, and the content is not just about the song. The content is like with you, it's like we spend a lot of time thinking about image and what is, you know, what's an image that represents your sound and also naturally, organically represents you as an individual, and what is an image that is going to sort of be like authentic to the music customer so that they want to buy into your lifestyle. You know, the Weeknd, I think, is a really good example of that. The Weeknd has such an amazing branding in terms of he's a lifestyle brand. He can put anything out.
Absolutely.
And it works because it's a brand, it's a lifestyle, you know? So I think that
he seems to have that real awareness of who, like, because an artist often doesn't know what they are. Like, they just make it and it just happens, and then somebody else has to say no or yes. But he seems to have that yes.
No.
But somebody else seems to, like, he seems to just have this amazing third perspective of himself, like, and a clarity, which, is just awesome as an artist to see that.
Definitely.
Interesting. So I have one more question.
Uh-oh. Dun, dun, dun.
We, you know, I deal with this a little bit, but you guys deal with this much more than me because you're on the pay side and I'm the get paid side. So you got somebody you're working with and you've signed them. What's the red flag?
Dave likes to ask big questions.
How long do we have?
Red flag in regards to what?
Oops.
Oh man.
Because when you sign artists, you're signing people, and we're flawed, and so you go, man, the songs are great, the productions are good, their image is good, but man, there's a red flag here. What is it? What's the red flag? What do you guys look for?
So much not being said right now.
A lot is being said.
You might want to give my wife a mic as well.
Yeah. Can you give Mario a mic? Can we turn Mario's mic on?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many red flags that could potentially come up.
But especially for the years of A&R, you must have there must be one that you go, this one is the self-destruct button. If we go further with this, we're just sinking more money into something.
I mean, there's drugs. There's artists that aren't focused. They're lazy. They're not driven. Those are huge things because that will alter the direction of their career altogether.
Which is interesting. We just jumped off The Weeknd. He hasn't written a song not about drugs except for a couple on this new album, but other than that, it's never been not about drugs.
Well, if you can manage your drug abuse, then that's
because
you know on The Weeknd.
I mean, you know, but if you can't handle it and you're, on TV and you're, I mean, that's you have to be able to.
Does anybody really manage their drug abuse?
Very
Honestly.
good question.
We're all doing it right now.
Yeah.
I think that you have to know how to function.
Fauntleroy can.
You still have to know how to function. But James, it's a little bit different. You know what I mean? When you're an artist, it's very different to, being a songwriter, not being in the limelight. And I know a lot of songwriters who don't manage, that kind of stuff.
So going back to the original question though, the big red flag is drugs and laziness, or I mean, what's it for you, Mark? What's the number one red flag?
To me, the number one red flag is when we want it more than the artist. I think that especially when you sign an 18-year-old, an 18-year-old is even just not in the music business is still trying to grasp a hold on what life is, right?
Yeah.
And I think the hardest thing for us to try and instill in a lot of the, all our artists are actually under 20 years old. So we definitely have to help them understand that in life, and especially in this business that's very tough, as you know, you only get what you put in. So if you're not giving 110%, it's going to be very hard. Like, we can't do the work for you. We can give you the great content, but if they're not doing their vocal exercises twice a day, they're not in the gym, they're not following their diet, it's a product, it's a brand. And I think for us, yes, the drug thing is always an issue, is always going to be an issue, but I think for me, that's the biggest red flag. When I see someone is not getting the results, they're not practicing, they're not doing this, my blood really boils, and I call Billy and I go, fuck!
Yeah, but
That was so Australian for a second.
He really does.
Yeah.
I really think
I
that's
know
probably that's a good answer. I think that is, when I hear it from different A&R and different whatever, it's like, if I'm working harder than the artist, it's time.
I mean, I always say that same thing too. Like, you can't, I can't want it more than you do. I mean, I had an artist that you remember that, I felt like, he would play video games all day long, and I'm like,
When's the last time you wrote a song?
yeah. And he was such an amazing writer too. I miss
when he put it in.
That feels bad.
Yeah, but I just felt like.
But if you're writing
like
two
I
great
wanted it more
songs
than
a year,
him. Yeah.
I think the other problem that you have also with artists these days is that, there's when you're 18, I think you want to believe that you know everything. Mm-hmm. And I think that they...
How old are you, Darcy?
I still want to believe.
That's my point. I was getting there.
And I'm not saying that your opinion as an artist doesn't matter at that age,
Absolutely.
but I think that they sometimes forget that you have to find the blend of business and creative. This is a business, and as a label, you put a lot on the line in terms of relationships and money and all these things. And I think that an artist has to learn how to also trust and let go. I always say this to artists. I say many of the superstars I've worked with as a producer-songwriter in my career, they come and record the song, leave the studio, and they never hear the product until it's on the radio.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a lot of trust.
Well, I just
has
think
to be.
it just has to be. I'm not saying that it's all like that, but I'll tell you the majority of it is. I mean, they don't hear it till the mix is done. They're not, and I'm not saying that I'm against an artist having input, because when you make the record, you want to hear what they have to say. But at the end of the day, I always say, know your genius, give people their space, let the experts do what they do best, because they're experts in that field and successful in that field for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Give your input and learn to let go, because then you're being really smart. And I think that young artists, have a little bit of a hard time with that. And of course, it's natural. It's a human instinct. But I think that finding that comfort zone, the quicker an artist finds that comfort zone for themselves, the quicker they can, find that they're, finding success slowly, brick by brick.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're reaching that point of time.
That was
we
one
need
of the
to wrap it up.
quickest.
That was
Yeah,
very,
it
very
was
fast.
Done. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Of course.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's really fun.
I would
really,
really
really
like to do, especially after the Terrence launch and a few other things, I'd love to do a follow-up with you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
So just
Absolutely.
to talk about what's happening as Tosh and Terrence and others get launched. So
We got it. Next time Tasha's in town, we're gonna definitely. I want her to spend some time with you.
yeah, I'd love to connect with her.
Yeah.
So
You'd love her.
how can people follow you guys? Where are you at on Instagram and
Yikes.
other things?
It's
Twitter.
Okay, so I'm just kidding. Everything for me is Big Billy Clark at Big BIGBILLY Clark CLARK. It's Twitter, Instagram. I don't really go on
Jack
Twitter.
Black was taken, so yeah.
Jack Black was taken, so I had to use Big Billy Clark. Oh, I love Jack Black. Seriously, La Choliba is my favorite movie ever.
Yeah, well, I liked School of Rock.
Yeah, School of Rock.
Although
I like Tenacious.
I remember
Tenacious
when that
D.
Tenacious
Tenacious D is amazing.
I lost
Best.
my shit when that single came out. When I was like young, I was like, holy shit.
What was the movie with Ben Stiller though?
Oh, the pooperizer or poo.
No,
May
no,
Poo Riser.
no,
Poo
no,
Riser.
no. The other one. What is it? The one where they're
What's
living
the
in the
premise?
forest, or they're
Living in the
Oh,
forest.
Tropic Thunder.
Oh, Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
That was good.
That was the best.
That's a great
That
movie.
was
That was awesome.
good.
Jack Black. Don't judge me. Speaking of
You
drugs.
never go full.
That's a great movie.
So, Mark, where can people?
Um,
Are you doing some social media?
Yep. Mark J. Feist is the Instagram, and then hitmakersentertainment.com is our website. But look, reaching out to Billy's like reaching out to me. So you can just Google us, and I'm sure people can find us.
And where can we find your artists? Give us just a real quick Tosh. Terrence.
Tosh is Tosh _ sings on Instagram. Terrence is Terrence Wild with an E, WILDE _ on Instagram. Yeah.
Okay,
Check
great.
him out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you. my
Thank you,
wife.
guys.
Thank you, husband.
Thank you for stepping in, our producer Darcy,
Not
who
at
is
all.
also
Darcy.
co-hosting.
Co-producer.
Good to meet you.
And we'll look forward to having another great chat soon with you guys.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Thank
Thanks,
you for
everyone.
having us.
Thank you.
Crank the AC.
Sing Talk. This is Sing Talk Radio.